So I'm going to talk you through the poem Cynddylan and a Tractor by R.S. Thomas, which is one of the Welsh writing and English poems you'll be studying as part of your GCSE in English literature. So the poem's title, Cynddylan and a Tractor. Cynddylan is actually a historical figure of Wales from the 7th century, and what R.S. Thomas wants to do here is to think about the Wales from the past and to link that image with the symbol of a tractor. So what's happening here is Thomas is taking a symbol of Welsh history and putting him into a more modern context. And the tractor within the title of the poem perhaps symbolises the mechanisation of agriculture, an industry which is quite central to life in Wales. So the opening of the poem is an interjection with the word "are," which immediately places the speaker on quite an intimate level with the reader, and sort of sees Cynddylan here as an object of endearment, something that we're quite familiar with. And there are hints of pride, but also perhaps a sense of pity in the tone which Thomas is adapting here. As the poem continues then, in the second line, we've got yoked him to the soil. So here I would argue the use of the verb yoked is quite interesting, because on one hand it means to restrict or to oppress something, to confine something, but it also refers to a wooden beam which would have been used to attach to farm animals. So you can see how it ties in with the imagery of this particular poem. As the poem continues then, he's a new man now, part of the machine, but there's a clear conflict between the desire for progress and a sadness at the loss of tradition continues here. And this metaphor continues then with nerves of metal and his blood oil, which continues this image of the man as machine, and there's a sense of invincibility and strength here. But interestingly, even these strong images are sort of alongside the idea that something's been corrupted or polluted. The clutch curses uses alliteration, which perhaps conveys the sort of gurgling or clicking sound of a stubborn clutch. And this lyrical use of language reflects the sounds of Cynddylan's environment, and again places the reader very much on the farm. As the poem continues, we've got riding to work now. The immediacy of now, the second time it's used in the poem, reminds us that the poem operates in the present tense. We've got the idea that this farm is ploughing onward, the tractor, is ploughing onward as we're watching it in action. And then we've got a metaphor for the tractor of the knight at arms, which recalls quite a medieval image, performing perhaps a joust, except in this case all that's being attacked is the farm and the soil. And what's interesting as the poem continues is that the tractor seems to disturb the wildlife, as animals who would normally coexist with the farmer are now terrified and driven away as the tractor advances forward. And that's contrasted then with quite a natural image of the sunrise. However, as it's pointed out here, the sunrise is not for him, and the engagement with technology means that he misses the beauty of the sun rising. As the poem advances towards a conclusion, you've got the birds are singing, but notice the bills wide in vain. So these final lines encompass the sense of motion. The birds which sing to mark the morning's beginning do so in vain, as if they're trying to strain above the engine or the roar of the tractor. And then we've got the final idea of Cynddylan passing proudly, and perhaps here his passing movement symbolises the relentless moving of technological progress, and perhaps ties into an image we saw earlier in the poem. I think it's clear to say that Cynddylan is oblivious to the natural chaos he is causing, and this tension between technology and the natural world is something we see a lot of within the poem. If we think about the form of the poem, we've got this conflict as well between what seems to be the traditional poetic form of a sonnet, and later on we see this modernised free verse. There aren't any breaks or stops in the poem, perhaps reflecting the way in which the modern tractor sort of roars or charges through the field. And the rhythm is roughly what we would call iambic pentameter, where there are 10 stresses per line, but sometimes the rhythm jolts or doesn't quite fit, and perhaps that's reflective of the tractor's movement as well.